Yo, Tube, what is good? It's Aeghis. In this video, I have a little breakdown of how to play Rogue Mage in 2v2. This is one of my favorite comps currently, and always has been to play in the 2v2 bracket. If you guys haven't tried it out already, I would definitely recommend trying to, find a sub-rogue of your own or a mage of your own. I think the best variation of it currently would be Frost Mage with a sub-rogue. The other two specs are really just not dishing out the most damage currently, and also the double block from Frost Mage really helps. Now this comp, I would definitely rank it as a pretty difficult comp to pull off in 2v2 currently. I think me and Naj, we are the highest rated rogue mage playing 2v2 right now, and a lot of what we're fighting is namely marksmanship healer, DK healer, sometimes affliction lock healer, which can be pretty difficult sometimes. But sometimes you'll run into your good matchups, which are warrior healer, windwalker healer, demon hunter healer, like those types of things. Yeah, currently it could be a little bit difficult just because of how many abilities in the game currently break crowd control. So a lot of people have been sort of reaching out to me like, Aeghis, how do we play rogue mage 2v2 in the war within when every single spell is breaking all of our CC? And today I'm gonna hope to kind of teach you guys a little bit about how to avoid all of these things and how we can play the comp in the most efficient way in the war within. I still do really think it's a good comp when executed correctly. It's just we need to kind of go over how we can do that, how we can execute this stuff correctly, so that you guys can get in there and start winning with rogue mage yourself. So let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing we have to discuss when talking about rogue mage 2v2 is the build. So for the build, your build is going to look something like this if you're playing 3v3, right? Like we have the 1 point in frigid, warding, fractured frost, and brain freeze, right? So these are going to be the 4 talents we're going to be removing. So we're going to take away warding and we're going to take away frigid. So the reason why we don't play with heal block all the time is that when we have a healer, we have no need for heal block. When we're playing rogue mage 2s, we do not have a healer, so we are going to need cryo freeze. So the whole reason we're taking those 2 points out of cryo baseline is that so we can just have that 5% additional snare at all times and more passive damage reduction with warding. But like I said previously, no healer, so we're going to need cryo. We'll put those 2 points in there. We're going to want to go Ring of Frost here because we need 2 schools to try and cheat people, right? Let's say my rogue cheap shots the healer and the stun DR is not off on the kill target. I need to be able to cast Ring of Frost, get interrupted on it, and then still be able to shimmer sheep. Or you are out of shimmers and the target is cheap shot behind the pillar. You need a way to Ring of Frost around the pillar so you can still land the crowd control. Resto druids, if they pre-bear form the cheap shot or DB, you need a way to Ring of Frost off that. Ice Nova is not going to be great in RM2s, even though it is a nice way to kite melees and it is a nice way to shatter. It's a low value global during a stun window because it doesn't do a lot of damage. There's going to be way better globals during the stun windows, so you might as well take the extra CC from Ring of Frost. Now over here, we're going to take out Fractured Frost and we're going to take out Brain Freeze. We don't need the AoE Frost Bolt, the Frostfire Bolt, and we don't really need additional flurries. But what we do need is damage that will not break when targets are stacked. And that's where Ray of Frost comes in. I don't love Ray of Frost currently. I don't love the amount of damage it does. However, it is a decent amount of damage when targets are not stacked. So that's going to be proven to be pretty useful for those scenarios. Obviously, though, the name of the game will be to have the go initiated when targets are not stacked, but sometimes that's not always possible. Sometimes it sort of just happens like that. So this is going to be the build we're rocking here. And then for PvP talents, there are 2 options. You have Master Shepherd, which is the one that I prefer. While an enemy player is affected, your polymorph while an enemy player is affected by your polymorph, your movement speed is increased and your verse is increased by 12%. Additionally, poly no longer heals. Now, the no longer healing part is good, but the 12% verse when you have a sheep is going to help you get more damage during your kill windows. You can think of Rogue Mage like you have a full sheep on the healer and you have a 5-second kidney on the kill target. And then you have to kill that target in the kidney shot as quickly as possible while the sheep is still there. And then you have to re-sheep, and then the rogue has to re-sheep. So you have like a full sheep into a half sheep, a kidney into a cheap shot to kill a target. So you need as much damage in that tiny window as possible, right? So while you have that sheep, Master Shepherd giving you 12% more damage is very helpful. So that's why it's also important to not Ring of Frost when you don't have to. Ring of Frost is there as like if you need it, because you'd rather sheep on the go to get Master Shepherd. Now, this isn't always needed. I'm just saying if you're trying to milk value and you're an advanced player and you really want to like recognize every min-max situation, sheeping is better because you get more damage. But that's kind of why I'm liking that over Ice Wall. Ice Wall is like a little bit of extra extended CC, but I do think you can't really afford it right now. Ring of Fire is very overtuned. Like Ring of Fire is doing a crazy amount of damage. This is obviously an Arcane Mage breakdown, but as you can see, Ring of Fire is just cranking right now. It's very important to always have those on the go. Frostbomb can hit upwards of about 1 million right now. I still think it's very viable to run. So that's enough of the build, guys. We've been kind of rambling on long enough. I just want to go into enough detail to hopefully, you know, help you guys really understand Rogue Mage. So let's get into the actual gameplay breakdown now. Alright, so for the gameplay breakdown, we're going to watch a couple games. If you guys have just watched my recent video called The Cleanest Rogue Mage 2v2, you'll probably recognize some of these games. If you haven't seen that already, you can go watch that video for the baseline gameplay where I deliver commentary over the games so you can see it all happening in live action. But this video will be more of an in-depth breakdown where we actually kind of study each individual global. So we're going to watch a couple clean games, right? And then we're going to watch a couple not so clean games. And we're going to kind of see why maybe those clean games happened and why the not so clean games happened. So this will be an example of a pretty clean one. This game was definitely very, very good. So the first thing I walk in to an arena match, the first thing I think of is this an Invis game? So what is an Invis game? An Invis game is, do I need to be able to DB a target at the same time Naj saps someone? Sorry, the rogue. So this is a very standard opener. We call it like a DB sap, right? So let's say this healer, for pure example here, is a holy paladin, right? The best opener we could get is a sap on the pally and a DB on the warrior. Why is that? Why do we need that in that order? Sap on the pally is our CC for the go. What happens if we don't DB warrior? He sees sap on his own healer, he presses Bladestorm. Now we can't go because he's immune to CC during Bladestorm, and our sap is ticking down. Remember what I said, you have that 6-second window of sheep and that 6-second window of kidney, or sorry, 5, to kill someone. So when your sap DR is ticking down like that, like the sap is, you know, the H-Pal is in one and the warrior's Bladestorming, that's your time lost. You can't go the warrior anymore. Pretty much. It's gonna be a lot more difficult. So in those types of games, you need a sap DB at the same time. You'll see that later on in the video. So that's the first thing I'm always recognizing is, am I fighting a comp that is an Invis comp, aka do we need a sap DB? So this one, the druid will be in stealth. I don't need to enter stealth here because I don't need to DB the warrior at the same time we're sapping. So I just am walking in on my mount. I'm kind of admiring what buffs he has here. So he has full hots. You can see regrowth, bloom, rejuve, regermination, and mark of the wild. So I'm going to sit on this pillar for a little bit. He doesn't look like he wants to engage me, so that's fine with me because I'm going to wait out those hots a little bit. Now, the thing I personally like to do here when the druid is in stealth is, if it's a class I'm confident in 1v1ing, then I will try to 1v1 them, which is pretty much every class, by the way. Like, you should be able to... Frost Mage is one of the best dueling classes. So the way that you want to kind of approach getting the druid out of stealth to initiate your first go is to damage the warrior a little bit and keep distance from him and act like you are dueling him, but don't commit cooldowns. Like if I were to icy veins, the druid would just come out and pre-iron bark him, and then that's like half of your veins gone. So you need to try to get him low enough to force the druid out to actually come out and heal him, and then you can start setting up your DB with some sort of CC on druid. And what I mean by DB, you'll see here in a second, we call this a preemptive DB, pre-CC. So I'm gonna just paint a picture again for you guys here, because I really want to explain this in a way that everyone watching can understand, not just the advanced players. But now that we have the druid out of stealth, what is gonna happen if I DB the druid, or if Naj cheap shots the druid for further crowd control off, right? Let's say we want to get some kind of ring of frost on him. If Naj cheap shots the druid and I ring of frost off, the warrior is not going to let us do that, right? He's going to blade storm, stormbolt, fear me. He's gonna do something, right? He has outplay potential. So we need to time our CC at the same time. So I need to put a pre-Dragon's Breath on the warrior. Pre, because it is a preemptive CC that is setting him up for a stun. So pre-CC is not a stun. Pre-CC is a sheep, a blind, a DB, some sort of thing to remove the outplay potential that the warrior can have before we stun him. So you can see here, I got stunned. I see Naj is moving into position. So as soon as he gets close enough to step, I put the warrior into a pre-DB. Then Naj blinds the healer. So now, since the warrior is pre-DB'd, he can no longer use, he no longer has outplay potential to use some kind of cooldown before we stun him. So we get the full stun. I would go ahead and load up the frost bomb. So the way you need to think about your globals during the window of your go. So this is where you enter something that is called the kill window. Your globals during the kill window need to be optimized if you are going to kill in Rogue Mage 2v2. In my opinion, this is the easy part of Rogue Mage, because your globals during the stun window are not that hard to get right. What's hard to get right in Rogue Mage is getting these windows clean, like setting up these kill windows consistently. But with practice, you can make that part easy too. But let's focus for right now on the kill window. So you can see here, the first thing I'm thinking about whenever we enter the first damage global of the kill window, right? Okay, so the kill window, you want to optimize your globals, right? So we got the warrior into pre-CC. Boom. He sends the blind. While I still have, so I need to follow up this with a sheep, right? Naj is going to be focused on restunning the kill target and doing damage. But what I need to do is now I need to do as much damage as I can and also get follow-up CC. So first thing I notice, he's out of form. He's in human form. I can just sheep. I don't need to ring. Keep in mind, we want to sheep if we can. So I frost bomb. First global. I have a couple more seconds until I need to sheep. So I need to fit as many damage globals as possible. So I frost bomb with veins. I orb. I sheep now. So that's something that you guys need to recognize, is what global you need to sheep on and how many damage globals you can fit before that. Okay. So you can see my sheep cast is done here. I definitely could not have fit another damage global in there. The blind was too short. So I don't want to give you guys an exclusive number here, like, oh, you only have 2 damage globals or 3 before you need to resheep. It all matters about how much haste you have. So with veins up, I fit frost bomb into orb. Pre-DB frost bomb into orb. That's 2 globals before I had to sheep. So then you can see I got it there. I pop my flurry now. I Comet Storm, Pet Nova, Frostfire Bolt. You can see the druid trinketed and the warrior used Enraged Regeneration. So that's 2 trades now. So he used Enraged Regeneration, which is his damage reduction, and the druid traded for him, Iron Bark. So this warrior has somewhere around 50% damage reduction, and he's at 70% HP. He likely will not die, right? But we did not use stun. We didn't use a stun on the druid to set up that goat. We just did blind into sheep. So, and keep in mind, all we did to warrior was pre-DB him, right? So based off of the DRs remaining, what kind of play can we make to make use of all of these damaging cooldowns, such as blades and veins, right? Well, we can sheep the warrior. He has no DR, and we can stun the druid. So this is what we call a 2-for-1 go. So this is on the goes that you have big cooldowns, veins, blades. It is very, very, very optimal to have a 2-for-1 go. So you can see here, as soon as we see all of these damage reduction cooldowns, we both swap off the target. Naj swaps to the druid, and then on this was actually a misplay by me. This global should have been a sheep on war. But you can see me put a ring of fire down. Then I sheep the warrior, and we go the druid. So this is a 2-for-1 go. So we have just done like blind into sheep, stun on warrior, force druid, trinket, iron bark with enrage regen. Since we still have so much damage left in the tank, we don't want to just put that into that endless amount of damage reduction, right? There's no way that the warrior would have died through that. 50% damage reduction? No way. So we can get bonus cooldowns by going druid. So what do we get by going druid now? Well, you can see he kind of almost dies. And you can see I opt for the Ray of Frost this go because I couldn't really help the fact that they were stacked. So we're doing damage to war. And then keep in mind, I couldn't have sheeped right off that because the warrior was in the Comet Storm Meteor, which does leave Meteor burn on the ground. So I couldn't exactly sheep him right there. Then when the warrior charges to Naj, I'd go ahead and try to get a ring down. Then I sheep. Then I ray. So the ray is going to be there to help you do damage when the targets are stacked. And of course, we're going to be doing that into a Winter's Chill to guarantee the shatter on it. And then of course, the druid will skin here. We're getting bonus cooldowns here. And he almost goes down. We get tranquility as well. So now this is what you might be asking. Well, did you really get more cooldowns doing that? The answer is yes, because we got druid's trinket trank now. So not only is the warrior a viable kill target because he has no enrage regen, but now the druid is a potential kill target for next go. And maybe even the better kill target because he has no trinket, no skin, and no tranquility. Tranquility is sort of like druid's bubble. Like they're sort of immune to everything while it's channeling. So those kind of 2-for-1 goes are very useful way to make up for all the damage that you're committing on a go. So now that our go is over, first things obviously is we have to recognize when the go is over. Me and Naj both immediately changed gears at this point. We're no longer trying to pump. We're no longer doing anything else go-wise. We're just waiting for these DRs to reset here. The stun DR, this stun DR, the sheep DRs, DB DR. We need all those to reset. So we have kind of like a 20-second window here where we have to switch gears and go into survival mode. So what do? I position far away from Naj. As the mage, you want to position far away from your rogue, ideally on corners of pillars so they can step you and move around the pillar. So I position over here, Naj steps me. And now I'm staying near Naj because I want to potentially, I know the warrior has 2 charges, so he does have one. I was going to blast wave him off. But I'm keeping a snare up on the warrior too. Some people ask me, why do you play slow? This is why. One thing I'm doing here with your mass barrier, how you'll use this talent in Rogue Mage 2s is sometimes I'll look down here or I'll target Naj and see if he has any dots so that when he re-stealths, I can shield him and it won't break him out. That's very important that your rogue gets rees. Now that he's in stealth again, this is very, very good. So we need to go ahead and just prime up another go here. You can see the stun DR and the DB DR is off. So I start spell stealing hots, makes the warrior less tanky during our stun window. Keep in mind, we need to optimize how efficient we are in those windows because you need to kill people in those windows, those stun and sheep windows. So I'm trying to remove any source of healing from the target while he's in a CC. I start to do a little bit of damage to him because I know Naj is about a cheap shot. I can see he's in position to get the druid for me. Now I have 2 options here. I could pre-DB warrior with a shimmer, or I could try to pre-sheep warrior. Sometimes I do this too. Pre-sheep, pre-DB, it's the same thing. It's the same. It accomplishes the same task, which is pre-CCing the warrior. So I just go for a pre-sheep here. So I sheep him. Naj notices that right away. So if you're the rogue watching and you see this, this is your sign to cheap shot or set me up with some sort of CC. So he cheap shots. He's around the corner, and I ring of frost. So I go ahead and get that. Learning kind of how to put rings around corners when you can't see them is simply something that's going to take practice. But you can sort of sense, like, okay, if I put the ring here, I know that it's this distance on the other side too. So you sort of also just have to trust yourself a little bit on that one. Then I load up the frost bomb, ring of fire. So keep in mind, I don't have veins for this go. So on the first go of the game, I didn't use ring of fire because I had veins to make up for my damage not being, like, ring of fire is super overtuned, but I didn't have to use it because I had veins, right? On your non-veins goes, it's going to be very, very important to get a ring of fire down. So you can see here, I'm loading up my dots first. My two first damaging globals of the kill window, which are very important, by the way. We want to optimize our kill window globals, are my dots. So I put the frost bomb, I put the ring of fire, and I put the flurry. Now, keep in mind, this CC, you need to get a re off of this. So at about 3 seconds, like 2 seconds right here, you need to go for that re. You can't, I couldn't have afforded another global here. So I shimmer in line and I get a sheep. He re-stuns. And then at this point, the frost bomb explodes. I call in the comet. He has ring of fire ticking. Naj will have one more stun on him here. The comet storm meteor lands. All the damage comes in very, very late. Boom. I blink in. I use 2 ice lances while the comet storm is coming down in that last second of the window. And then you can see here, he didn't quite die in the stun window. So I don't know. This is just simply rogue mage not having, for one, like the warrior pre-deed, like a send ward on him. And also this is us not having blades or veins. So this is a non-blades, non-veins go. So he didn't die exactly in the stun window. He's at about 20% coming out. So we need to do what we call now a bit of an extended go. So extended goes in rogue mage refer to goes where you kind of continue doing damage even outside of that kill window. So you can see here we had the sheep, we had the full sheep into the half sheep, we had the stun into the quarter DR stun, and we're still going. So I go for the additional extension of crowd control with DB. Naj puts him into the duel as well. And then, spoiler alert, he dies in the duel. But a different way that you could have done this extended go, by the way, is the rogue could step duel the healer. Then the healer couldn't heal him, and then guess what? Stun DR is coming off. So in that 4-second duel, Naj would have also been able to kidney the healer. So that's another way you can do extended goes. So, and that would have been a really, really, really insane play. Naj luckily was able to take him out in the duel himself, but that was another angle. So now we'll go ahead and watch a little bit of a different game. That was an example of a comp that is, in my opinion, easy. Warrior healer typically is not that bad. Let's go ahead and watch one that might be a little bit more difficult, such as this one, DK healer. Okay, so something we didn't really discuss in that last game was stacking. So that was sort of a game where the stacking sort of fell directly into our hands, right? Like no one really stacked the whole go. This particular game will be a little bit different. They'll be stacked a lot because Prez is a healer that has to play sort of close to their DPS to heal. They have that decreased range. So another thing I'm thinking here, is this an Invis game? Do we need a DB sap? Not really, especially because DK is actually very difficult. Warrior I can live into with just my mobility alone. With a DK I actually need Invis to survive as a wall, as a damage reduction cooldown. So I don't like to have to use Invis into DK. So we get a pre-sap on Dragon. One thing to note here when you play Rogue Mage, noticing their enemy racials is very important. So when I see here, when Naj and I see here that the DK is an orc, what does that mean? That means that they have a 10% reduction to any sort of stun. That might not sound like a lot, but if you guys have ever played a rogue, you'll know when you stun an orc, you lose a damage global. So it actually deletes a global from your damage window in your kill go. So it's very difficult to kill orcs. You essentially have to do it one global quicker, which, as you guys could have seen from the previous example, without cooldowns, that's almost impossible to do. So you almost need Blades Veins to actually kill an orc, which is not always possible because sometimes you need to use Blades and Veins to force cooldowns. So killing orcs is very, very difficult as Rogue Mage. So when you can avoid going an orc, that's the best course of action most of the time. So we have the dragon into a sap. So this is our pre-CC. This gives us ample time for us to both work together to cross the DK and to get him into some type of CC, right? So the pre is going to look different every go, right? Like right now, so far we've seen 3 different pre's. We've seen a pre-DB on the warrior, we've seen a pre-sheep on the warrior, and now we have a pre-sap. You saw I kind of sat back and let Naj run in for it. I wouldn't want to give them combat so that we couldn't land the sap. Now I start moving in here. He AMS's, which is actually a very solid play. That's very good. This is what I mean by enemies using their abilities to sort of counterplay your go. So he's trying to delay getting CC'd. So he pops an AMS so that if Naj cheap shots him, I can't sheep off, right? So Naj is gonna go ahead and resap here. That gives us more time. And then keep in mind we have one more zap. So since he has AMS, Naj, being smart, blinds him. And then we go the dragon here. So I pop my veins right away because now we're in the kill go. We are the globals need to be optimized. So I veins so I can push out more globals. I frost bomb. I flurry. I orb. Keep in mind I'm not using Ring of Fire on this go really because it is veins. So I know that Ring of Fire is a very long cast. So even with veins up, it's sometimes like I still feel like I'll do more damage with a Frostbomb Flurry, Orb, Comet, Lance. Ring of Fire is more for those goes where you don't have veins. So instead of going for a sheep off here, I go for the Pet Nova, which was a mistake in my eyes. Let me see if I can fast forward it just a little bit. No. Yeah, so you can see when the damage window starts, there was already basically no time left on the blind. Like I would have had to go sheep him now, which is what I should have done. I made a mistake here. So I should have shimmer sheep to DK there. We would have gotten more cooldowns because right now you can see what happens when you don't follow up. So this is a prime example of what happens if you don't follow up, is the enemy DK just trades AMZ. And now this AMZ is going to ensure that the dragon is completely fine because look, my bomb hits for, like I'm doing no damage. He actually still almost dies. Now imagine if he didn't get the zone or if he had to trinket for it, right? Extra cooldowns. So now you can see here, stun DR on both targets. We weren't able to get a 2-for-1 go with our cooldowns. So not the most ideal start. Primarily my fault there because I didn't get the follow-up. So now this is when we're switching gears. We're going into defensive mode. I'm just kiting around a pillar. I got the altar before the strangulate, so I'm opting to sit this. DK doesn't really have like a crazy amount of 100-0 pressure. So I know the fact that I altered at 80% means that I should be able to sit this. It's important to sometimes be able to hold your trinket if you can. So I'm kiting them away from my altar position. Once I kind of get to a spot where I have them far enough away, I'll altar back and go around the corner. So that's something that you guys need to get used to, is playing corners. Corners are what's going to help you not get gripped or charged whenever you use mobility, right? So you can see here whenever the DK is on me, I alter on this corner and I bring him away from the corner. I'm waddling away. As soon as I get to a point where I know I'm far enough, I cone of cold him before I alter back, which puts a 70% snare on him. And then I alter back and go around the corner. I even threw in a shadow meld in case he had insane reaction time to drop his target so that he couldn't grip me, and then I barrier to remove any snare that I had. And I also shield Mage. So now that I'm behind the pillar, I shifting power. I want to try to get all these cooldowns I just used back. I want my Ring of Fire for the go. I'm trying to get my DB, trying to get my next barrier, trying to get my altar. I will also want to get my veins back as soon as possible. So now that our DR windows are off, we're looking to set up a go here, right? So we need some sort of pre on the dragon, but we don't get any. So this is what I personally call a sloppy go. Sometimes sloppy goes need to be done because of how much pressure you're under. You don't have the luxury of setting up a perfect go or a clean go with pre-CC and all that kind of stuff because of how much pressure you're under. So since I'm kind of like taking heat, Mage decides to sort of carry and send a sloppy go. This is sometimes fine. Sometimes you need to send a go to survive. So I Ring of Frost here because he was slightly out of line. And the reason I do this is because I don't want to commit a shimmer when I don't need to. I could have shimmer sheeped this DK, but the Ring of Frost allows me to sheep him around the corner while saving mobility, so I still have double shimmer to survive for next go. So I'm kind of getting away with not having to use a shimmer here, so that whenever the DK comes out of CC, I have more tools to survive. So now you can see I flurry, comp storm, cheap shot, re-cheap shot, the DK trinkets out of the sheep, and double blinds us. So that's likely all we're gonna get here, and the dragon trades communion. So another thing is that's very important is to realize immediately what you got from a go. So I can, from that go, I realized almost immediately everything that we got, right? So let's watch what happens here. We're watching over here. DK trinkets, communion, right? Those are two like major cooldowns. The trinket is a 2-minute cooldown, the communion is a 3-minute cooldown, or however long it is. Yep, and that's like a large heal he can use in CC. So that was a successful go. Even though we didn't get anywhere near killing him, that was still very, very solid. Very solid. So now, one thing I want to note here is a topic that we haven't discussed, and that is identifying the kill target. So right now, keep in mind at the beginning of the game, we were like, okay, the DK's an orc, we don't really want to go him. Now we're sort of mid-game. Let's reanalyze who's the best kill target. That's what we're doing every time that we have downtime in between goes. So dragon has trinket, but no communion. DK has no trinket, but he does have IBF. So IBF is another trinket that he can use basically while in stuns. And the dragon has no communion, is not an orc, but does have his trinket. So now I start to think, what can the dragon pair with his trinket? So that's another thing. The trinket doesn't really mean much if he doesn't have much to pair it with, right? It'll get him out of the stuns, but if he doesn't have a wall or a rewind to pair with it, then it doesn't really do too much. So he does not have a wall. So we want to still go on dragon here, even though he has trinket. DK's orc and has IBF, not really ideal. Even if on next go we don't kill, we get trinket rewind, and then he dies next go after that as well, because he has no communion. So in my eyes, on paper, this is a 2 more go game. There's 2 more goes left before we can actually kill, and I will have veins for that next one. So it's sort of like also realizing kind of the realistic expectation of when you can actually kill someone, assuming they trade properly. So when I come out of block here, I do a little trick here that you can blast wave a DK while he has a mess up, and you can combine that with a shimmer to get out of range of a grip. So I know I'm on hypothermia here. I sit the full block. I sit this whole thing. Another thing to note too is heal block only heals you for 50% of your HP now. So don't wait to block till you're too low. I'll go ahead and discuss why I block here. So we get the Comet Storm Meteor. I get gripped, blinded. The go is over. The go is over, right? We got Trinket Communion. We switch gears. Defensive mode now, right? I block because I'm at 50%. So if it only heals me 50% and there's 16% dampening, if I want to get full HP, that's like the perfect block. And I'm inside of the block while we're waiting for stun DR. So perfect. buying time. I set the full thing, I heal up. Now I want to keep this HP, so I need to avoid as much damage as possible, get these guys off me. The best way to go about that is a blast wave shimmer, and you can see as soon as I shimmer, I turn my character and get around that corner. Again, the corner's coming up. So these corners are your best friend, guys. Maybe a bit too slow there. So you can see on this blast wave in a second here. Boom, shimmer, immediately turning my character around the corner. Immediately turning my character around the corner so that I cannot be gripped. Then I use my pet nova to get the pets off me. We send kind of another sloppy go here. This one I don't think was needed. This was just a little bit sloppy on our end. So he sends the cheap shot. I try to get the sheep. It's immune because he's an orc, so the cheap shot is less duration. So he was able to lich born it, and I wasn't exactly ready for it because I didn't predict that we needed a sloppy go here. So this kind of sucks, but at this point in time, I just have to kind of make something work. So even though we don't have CC on DK here, I can still try to get as much damage as I can in this window, especially because they aren't stacked. So I'm just pumping, I ray, I blink. We're trying to get the dragon's trinket. We didn't get it, which really sucks, right? He does almost die. I get stranged, I can sit. I alter back. I need to survive here. I use a shimmer, barriers to remove chains, orb to slow pets. Naj does a little extended go here. Like, to me, all these basically this last 30 seconds was all sort of just a big clump of misplays. I don't think you should rush it like that, especially when you're so far ahead. Like, I was behind a pillar, safe. We could have waited for pre there. So I'm just trying to survive now, wait till my second hypo. I'm forced into my second hypo. So you can see, like, even this game isn't even really going that well for us. Our first 2 goes were solid. Now our next 2 goes were bad. So this is when it starts entering territory where stuff was going to rotate back up. So you can see DK's trinkets in a minute. Communion has CDR, so it's not actually 2 minutes away. We still haven't forced Dragon's trinket. It's not looking great, right? I'm trying to sit this block as full as possible. We send like kind of another sloppy go. So you can see into DK healer, it's like, this is how a lot of our games look into DK healer, is it's kind of like a big mess. This is like the hardest comp you can fight right now. So I try to get this sheep late. I'm forced into a sticky situation here because the DK used IBF on the setup. So if we want to look at this in depth here, you'll see Naj prees. It's a pre-gouge. Then he sets up the cheap shot. So I'm supposed to sheep off that, but he IBFs it. So now I'm in this situation where it's like me versus the DK. I have to find a way to CC him, and he's trying to prevent me. So I try to cast sheep on him, knowing he's in kick range. I stop, I juke him, and I get precog, and I get a full sheep on him. Now the dragon trinkets out of the stun, so he most likely won't die here, but I'm still going to try to kill him because I have a full sheep. So I'm still in my kill window. I'm still in my globals where I'm trying to kill him. So I get a ring of fire on him because I know that this will be an extended go. He won't die in the stuns. I get my re. I get one more, and I'm just pumping. He's not going to die. So now I switch gears, and I'm in survival mode. I bring him away from my altar position. I alter back. I face away to try to blink grip. Doesn't go for it. Now that I realize he's switching over to Naj, he targets him. I go back, and I kick Disintegrate to save him, and I look for pre. I got the pre-sheep. Naj sets me up with a cheap shot. However, there's no sheep DR. So don't make the mistake there. So while I wait for that sheep DR and that sheep shot to tick down, I use a frost bomb. This is called optimizing your damage globals, right? If I can press a damage global while the target is in pre, then I'm removing a damage global that is required during the window, which allows me to fit another one in. So frost bomb won't break this sheep, and it makes it to where I can have it on the target before he's stunned. And what does that do? It allows me to use another damage global when he is stunned, which is going to increase our damage in that window, right? In the kill window. So Frost Bomb, since the sheep DR was not off, I had to go with a DB into sheep, which also cuts into my damage globals. Luckily, I do have veins up, and I did get my pre-Frost Bomb on them, so I'm only one global behind technically in damage. I Orb, which gives me Permafrost Lance, which increases my damage. I also have my Master Shepherd bonus. The game has been going on for quite some time, so I have my 10 stack embellishment. I got all my, I have so many modifiers right now with veins for 2 seconds. My Frost Bomb's about to tick. Boom, big Lance, big Frost Bomb explosion, big Lance, or Frostfire Bolt, and he goes down. The dragon had no trinket there. So now the question that kind of everyone has when it comes to Rogue Mage 2s, so much CC is breaking. What are we doing about that? In terms of people stacking on the goes and so much damage being AoE. So one thing I want to note here is sort of just like a mindset shift a little bit about this idea, and that when targets are stacked, there are ways to do damage without it breaking. There is a macro that I use to cancel excess frost and excess fire, which I will have in the comment section. So essentially, my philosophy, I suppose, behind this is, real quick here, I'll pull up my World of Warcraft game, and we'll take a look here. So basically, on my Frost Mage, I have a couple different macros for Frost, namely the cancel aura excess frost and excess fire right here. So basically there's two, a couple of people will think like this, well, why don't you just put it in the macro of flurry itself? The reason you don't want to just always cancel excess frost or excess fire, now before I say this, if you're a new player and you're playing Rogue Mage 2s, it might be a good idea to just have them in the flurry and lance macro. But if you have an excess frost and excess fire, you don't always want to cancel them, right? Because if the targets are not stacked, you're losing out on a lot of damage by not having those. But by having a macro to instantly remove them, you make it to where when targets are stacked, like right here, for example, excess frost, this will make my next flurry ice nova, which will break CC. If I don't want that, I just use my bind to cancel it, and then now my flurry will be single target. And then of course, in the demonstration, you saw a glacial assault proc. That's another RNG, 25% chance on flurry. So that one you can't control. So you kind of just have to hope that you don't get a glacial assault whenever you do flurry on the go if they're stacked. Another way to do damage when they're stacked, not frost bombing, because obviously that will break it, will just simply be flurry, hopefully for no glacial assault. There it was. And then you just ray. So that's pretty good. Good way of doing damage. That's why we're playing ray. Remember, canceling that excess is good, having a keybind for that. And trying to like edge a ring of fire is also good. So for example, if I wanted to try to get a ring of fire not on this left target but just the right one, I could do it like right there, and I'm pretty sure that would work. Maybe like a little bit over. Yeah, so it would apply to this guy and it wouldn't apply to this guy. So that's another good way to do damage, because ring of fire is really good. But when it comes to people not stacking, essentially what matters more is preventing them from stacking, right? Making sure they're not stacked. And this comes through a lot of different ways. This comes through preemptive control of where they're at. So there is like one trick you can do, worst case scenario, if they stack. So like look at this, for example, they're stacking. What do I want to do? So I'll come out. This is like a little trick you can do. You DB, you stand in between them, you cast sheep, and then you spam blast wave here, and it'll kind of not break the sheep and knock them far. That's like a pretty okay way of doing it. That's obviously a last resort, but you can see it is very effective. I mean, we just killed that guy right there. But we don't even need a particular game to discuss this next part, and that's basically just in order for targets to not be stacked, it comes through preemptive measures, through making sure that targets are not stacked in a preemptive kind of manner. So the way that you're going to be positioning in a game will dictate how people are stacking, right? So the way that you kite to survive matters. It matters because I'm trying to find a game here with a melee. So maybe this one will be good. It doesn't even really matter the game because it's always going to be the same thing, right? So it doesn't matter. So like, look at this real quick. These guys aren't stacking. Even if they were stacking, you would do this differently. Like right here, we get a sap DB. It's a classic opener. Okay, what if they're stacking now? Easy. Double DB, stand in between blast wave. It's not the most ideal, obviously, but... And in that situation too, the rogue has to be sure that he's shadow step stunning the target pretty much as the target's in the air, so the warrior doesn't get the global. So yeah, in this situation, it wouldn't matter if they were stacked. We would have had the same thing here. We'll fast forward a little bit after the go to the second one. So let's look at how I kite here, okay? This is how you prevent people from stacking in Rogue Mage. So he's look at the distance between me and my rogue, right? If he wants to go my rogue, he won't be stacking. If he wants to go me, look at where I'm gonna kite him. I'm not gonna kite on top of his priest, right? Where do I go? I'm bringing them away. I alter, but now I need to line purges, so I would bring the warrior over here. You can see I'm still lining the priest. Then I alter back. Now they're kind of separated. And a bigger concept here is making sure not only to bring them to a spot where they're not stacking, but it's to pre them out of line, right? Not out of line, but not stacking. So the only time you really want to send your pre-CC is when they're not. So like right here, for example, yeah, that was kind of a bad displace on my end because I almost stacked them up. This would be an example of a bad way of preventing them from stacking. You can see I have the warrior far over here. All I have to do is trinket DB, and that would have been a perfect go. Instead, I trinket displace, and then look, now they're stacking. So that's bad, right? That is bad. You don't want to do that. What you want to do with your positioning is keep them far so that you don't ever have to deal with all the AoE. It's likely that you can do that very consistently as well. That's something, you know, Naj and I and Explicit and I commonly do. We don't really have that many stacked goes. And then whenever you do have those stacked goes, you have that excess frost and that excess fire cancel macro, the hope for no glacial assault, and then you have Ray of Frost as well to avoid the splitting ice. And if they are stacking and you don't have a Ray of Frost, you try to edge that Ring of Fire, you flurry, and then you hard cast like a Frost Fire Bolt. So definitely a big sacrifice on damage on that one, but... And you can see here, this isn't too bad of a stack. None of our damage will split there. I'm able to just do my rotation. Don't have to cancel my excess Frost or Fire. And he does go down. So we can watch maybe one more just to see. So this is maybe a good one. I don't even think we win this game, but this one's like, we watched like not stacking with melee, and then this one will be a little bit like more ranged. So for this game, the Explicit finds the hunter, and then he blinds the priest. Hunter trinkets, we swap priest, sheep on hunter, big damage, trying to force out PS. We get PS there. Now I need to line the hunter because he has a million pets. He's popping Bestial Wrath. He's doing a lot of damage. You can kind of see the targets are stacking a little bit here, so we need to kind of first run because we just need to live. This is the whole zoo on us. And then you can see where they're stacking, right? Or you can see where they're standing. This is when we would want to pre him, right? Right now I'm kind of taking a lot of heat, so I have to block. But this is like a prime position to set up a go. So I could have easily just DB Sheep Priest there and Explicit went and stunned that guy. I pre him out of line here, He cheap shot bombs, so no PS. I get the full sheep, frost bomb, priest trinkets. Duel comes out. Trying to kill him there. Explicit's running towards me. Trying to get the pets off him a little bit. Sheep, Nova, Fear. Second block if needed. Something there. You can see they're flirting with the idea of stacking. Kind of stacking. But Explicit sees the hunter's kind of walking away and sends the cheap shot. Like he just goes for it. Right? Kind of has the momentum of that jump. So, I mean, you guys can see there are ways to do it. You just have to time your pre-CC at a position when they're not. That's the most important. And you can do this through preemptive measures, meaning whenever if you are kiting and avoiding damage in the most ideal way, people will not stack by default because you are dragging them away. And if they're double chasing you, like let's say the healer and the DPS are playing super aggro on you and they're stacking on you and killing you, then you double DB, stand in between blast wave with sheep. So I would say mainly the goes that you can avoid the stacking are ones that are going to be kind of sloppy goes. If you guys remember that term I used, it's basically whenever you're under a lot of pressure and you sort of have to send the stun DRs with no pre-CC in a way just so that you can avoid damage and not die. So it's not a clean go with pre on one, crowd control the other, then go the target off the pre. It's more or less just like stun one, stun the other, and then, you know, hope that you can get the sheep off and hope that the other guy doesn't press anything because you didn't pre him. But yeah, guys, that'll do it for the Rogue Mage guide. Hopefully this came out decent. I don't know. I've kind of flirted with the idea of doing a Rogue Mage style guide for a long time. I wouldn't say this is like the most structured way of going about it, but at the same time, trying to break down general concepts for Rogue Mage is something that's very difficult. I do think that this video does cover a lot of kind of baseline generalized concepts of Rogue Mage. Obviously, into a bunch of different comps and stuff, there's a bunch of different strats, but this video I think will set up people with a lot of good information in terms of a general idea of how to approach Rogue Mage. So good luck out there, and let me know how you do as Rogue Mage. If you guys are looking for coaching, head on over to my Discord channel. I offer coaching, and if you ever want to play too, oftentimes I'll do viewer twos on stream, twitch.tv/Aeghis. I'm out for now. Peace.